Ilisara, the alien princess, stood at the edge of the grand palace balcony, gazing out over the vast expanse of her homeworld. The stars above seemed distant, much like her own dreams. Her family, once proud rulers of a mighty empire, now saw her as a disappointment. For months, her royal suitors had rejected her, one after the other. It wasn't that she was unworthy of love. She was beautiful, powerful, and intelligent. But each suitor had their reasons. Some feared her strength, others her unpredictability. And some, the most painful of all, simply did not desire her. She was the princess. And yet she had never felt more alone. Her people, who once adored her, now whispered behind her back, wondering if she was fit to lead. Her own family had begun to distance themselves, hinting that perhaps it was time for a new heir to take her place. Ilisara had tried everything. She had spent countless hours with potential suitors, showing them the elegance of her culture, the richness of her mind, and the strength of her spirit. But no one seemed to see her for who she truly was. It wasn't her fault. She had been taught. That marriage was a means to create alliances, not love. Her royal duties were clear, but the pain of being rejected by every suitor, especially by those she thought she could trust, weighed heavily on her heart. Then came the Earth's mission. It was supposed to be another political move, a way to strengthen alliances with a species that had proven their strength in war humans. Ilisara had seen the humans as nothing more than an interesting curiosity. They were not as advanced as her people, not as regal, and certainly not as refined. Yet there was something about their spirit, their refusal to bend, that intrigued her. So she agreed to the mission, hoping perhaps this time she could prove herself to her family and to the galaxy. When she first met Alex, a human soldier, she did not think much of him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and clearly out of his depth, in a world so far beyond his own. But there was a quiet confidence in his eyes, something she had never seen in her other suitors. He didn't bow to her. He didn't even look at her the way others did, with awe or fear. He treated her like a person, not a princess. And that was the one thing she found herself longing for. Alex wasn't the most handsome man she had ever seen. His face was rugged, weathered by years of combat, and his hair was messy. Yet there was a kindness in his eyes that made Ilisara's heart race in a way she had never experienced. He was nothing like the perfect men her family had chosen for her, and somehow that made him all the more perfect in her eyes. Over the days they spent together on Earth, Ilisara found herself drawn to him. She would catch herself staring at him when he wasn't looking, mesmerized by the simplicity of his actions. He would laugh at jokes she didn't find funny, yet his laughter was contagious. He would care for his soldiers, offering them advice and comfort, no matter how tired he was. For the first time, Ilisara began to feel something real, something she had never felt for any other being. But she was a princess, and he was just a soldier. She had her duty, and he had his. There was no future for them. She could never marry a human. The very idea was laughable to her people. And yet her heart ached whenever she saw him smile. One evening, after a successful diplomatic meeting between their leaders, Alex and Ilisara found themselves alone under the night sky. The stars twinkled brightly above them, casting a soft glow over the earth below. For a moment it felt like the universe had slowed down, just for them. "I never thought I'd be here," Alex said, his voice soft, almost thoughtful. "A human, walking beside an alien princess?" Ilisara laughed, but it was a soft laugh, one filled with a sadness she couldn't hide. "You're not just walking beside a princess. I am just a person, Alex. And right now, I feel like the most rejected person in the universe." Alex turned to her, his eyes searching hers. "Why? You're amazing. You're strong, intelligent, and you don't have to prove anything to anyone." "Why do you care about what they think?" Her eyes dropped to the ground. "Because I'm a princess. My entire life has been about making alliances, about power. But no one sees me for who I truly am. They only see my title. They think I'm just another piece in their game." Alex stepped closer, his presence comforting. "That's not true. I see you for who you are. You don't have to hide behind your title with me." Ilisara's heart fluttered, a warmth spreading through her chest. She had never heard anyone speak to her like that. No one had ever cared to see beyond the crown. But Alex did, and that was the moment everything changed. For the first time in her life, Elisara felt something more than duty. She felt desire. She felt hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, there could be something real between them. But her heart and mind were torn. She was a princess bound by duty. He was a human, far beneath her station. What future could they have? But as she stood there, in the quiet of the night, gazing into the stars, Elisara made a decision. Perhaps she could no longer follow the path set for her by her royal family. Perhaps it was time to follow her heart. Elisara had never been to Earth before. She had read about it in books and heard tales of its strange cultures. But seeing it with her own eyes was something else entirely. The air felt different, fresher. Somehow, and the people were nothing, like the proud, regal beings of her homeworld. Earth was full of passion and imperfection, and it was starting to captivate her in ways she hadn't expected. She stood on the balcony of the human military base, looking out over the horizon. It was night, and the stars above Earth seemed to shine a little brighter than they did back home. But her thoughts were far from the beauty of the stars. Her mind was on Alex, the human soldier she had grown closer to during her time here. When she first arrived, Elisara had been cold toward him, distant, not wanting to show any weakness. After all, she was the princess, and humans were beneath her. But as time passed, she began to notice things about him that she couldn't ignore. Alex was brave, kind, and always ready to lend a hand to anyone in need. He didn't look at her, like everyone else did, with awe or expectation. To him, she wasn't a princess. She was simply a person. Elisara had always prided herself on her power and strength. But for the first time in her life, she felt something she wasn't prepared for: vulnerability. When Alex spoke to her, there was no fear in his voice. No need to impress her. He treated her as an equal, and that made her feel alive in a way she had never experienced before. That night, after their long day of diplomatic talks, Elisara found herself walking beside Alex. They were heading back to the base after a quiet dinner, and she had not realized how much she had come to rely on his presence. His simple kindness, the way he listened when she spoke, made her feel heard in a way that no one ever had before. "I'm surprised by Earth," Elisara said, her voice quiet, almost reflective. Alex smiled and looked at her. "You didn't expect us to be this interesting, did you?" She chuckled softly. "Not really. I thought humans were. Just humans. But you're not what I imagined. Not what you imagined." Alex raised an eyebrow. Elisara looked at him, the soft glow of the streetlights catching the edges of his face. "I thought you were simple, but you're not. You're something more to you." Alex smiled at her words. "And what exactly is that something?" Elisara paused, unsure of how to answer. She had never put her feelings into words before. "I don't know. I've spent my whole life trying to follow the rules, be perfect, be a good princess. But when I'm with you, I feel like I can just be myself. I don't have to be someone I'm not." Alex turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "Elisara, you don't need to be anyone but yourself. That's who I see." The words hung in the air between them. Elisara felt her heart skip a beat, something she had not allowed herself to feel for a long time, but she quickly dismissed. It was foolish. She was a princess. Alex was a soldier. What could ever come of their connection? As the days passed, their bond only deepened. They would talk for hours, discussing everything from the differences between their worlds to the meaning of true leadership. For Elisara, it was a revelation. She had always been told that leadership meant power, control, and dominance. But Alex had a different perspective. He believed leadership came from understanding others, from empathy and connection. And it was through these conversations that Elisara realized how much she had to learn. One afternoon, they were walking through the base. A group of human soldiers passed by. They greeted Alex with respect, but it was more than just politeness. There was genuine admiration in their eyes. Elisara couldn't help but notice how different it was from the way people treated her back home. On her planet, respect was often given because of status, but here, respect was earned through actions, through the way Alex treated those around him. "Why do they look at you like that?" Ilisara asked, genuinely curious. Alex shrugged. "I guess they see me as one of them. I'm not perfect, but I do my best, and they appreciate that." Ilisara nodded slowly. "I think I'm beginning to understand." Later that evening, they found themselves sitting together in a quiet corner of the base. The hum of the distant machinery, the only sound around them. Ilisara felt the weight of the silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful even. Calming, and in that moment, something shifted inside her. For the first time in her life, she realized she didn't need to follow the path set out for her by her royal family. She could choose her own future. "I've spent my entire life following orders," Ilisara said softly. "My family expects me to marry someone of status, to use my marriage to strengthen alliances. But what if I don't want that anymore? What if I want something real?" Alex turned to look at her, his eyes gentle. "Then you should go for it. You deserve to have what you want, not what others think you should have." She looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She ready to admit it? Ready to accept that her feelings for Alex were more than just gratitude or friendship? "I don't want to be alone anymore," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex reached out, his hand gently brushing hers. "You don't have to be alone, Ilisara. Not if you don't want to be." In that moment, Ilisara knew she had found something she had been searching for her whole life. Not power, not status, but love. Love that was pure, genuine, and true. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that it was possible. Ilisara's heart was heavy with doubt as she sat in her quarters that night. The stars outside the window flickered, but they seemed distant, like her own hopes. She had never expected to feel this way. She had spent so much of her life focusing on duty, on maintaining the strength and honor of her royal family. But now, after everything she had experienced with Alex, it was hard to ignore the growing longing in her heart. She wanted more than what her family expected from her. She wanted more than the cold political alliances that were forced upon her. But could she truly have it? Alex had shown her what real connection felt like. His kindness, his honesty, and his simple view of the world were refreshing. He didn't see her as a princess, he saw her as a person. And that was more than any other suitor had ever done. But there was no escaping the reality of her position. She was the princess of a powerful empire, and her duty to her people came. First, marrying Alex, a human, was not only impossible, it would cause a scandal that could tear apart the very foundations of her. Family's rule? The weight of her royal bloodline pressed on her chest, but her heart told her to follow her feelings. She couldn't stay here forever, pretending that the rules of her world had to be her own. But could she really defy everything she had known? The door to her room opened quietly, and Alex stepped inside. His presence was calm, but she could see the concern in his eyes. "Ilisara," he said softly, "I wanted to check on you. You've been quiet lately." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared out the window, her thoughts swirling. How could she explain everything she was feeling? How could she tell him that her heart was torn between him and the legacy of her family? "I've been thinking," she said at last, her voice low, about everything. About what it means to be a princess. What it means to be me. Alex stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You're not just a princess, Ilisara. You're someone with dreams, with feelings. You don't have to hide who you are." She shook her head slowly. "It's not that simple. I'm bound by duty. I was raised to lead, to follow the expectations of my family, of my people, and what I feel, what I want. It doesn't fit into that picture." Alex was quiet for a moment, as if thinking carefully about his next words. "You deserve to be happy. You deserve to choose what you want in life. Just don't let anyone make that decision for you." Ilisara felt a tear slip down her cheek, though she quickly wiped it away. She hadn't allowed herself to cry in years. Her entire life had been about being strong, about being perfect, but Alex had made her realize that strength wasn't about being flawless. It was about having the courage to follow your heart, even when the world around you told you otherwise. "What if I choose wrong?" she whispered. "What if I choose you, and it leads to the downfall of everything I've ever known?" Alex sighed and gently lifted her chin, so their eyes met. What if the real downfall is living a life you don't want? What if the real mistake is ignoring what's in your heart because of what others expect from you? Elisara's chest tightened at the thought. The weight of the decision she faced was more than she had ever imagined. Her family would never accept her marriage to a human. They would see it as a betrayal, a sign of weakness. In the galaxy, with all its old customs and ancient rules, would never allow a human to share her crown. I don't know if I can do it, she admitted, her voice trembling. I don't know if I can defy everything I've been taught, everything my people expect of me. Alex gently pulled her into a hug, his arms wrapping around her in a quiet gesture of support. You don't have to do it alone. I'm here for you, Lisara. Whatever you choose, I'll stand by you. But I'll never tell you to choose something that isn't what your heart truly wants. Her heart ached at his words, the love in his voice clearer than anything she'd ever heard before. He wasn't asking her to abandon her duties. He wasn't asking her to give up her past. He was simply offering her something more, a future, where her choices were her own, where love could exist outside of political alliances and royal bloodlines. That night, Elisara lay awake, her mind spinning with 1,000 thoughts. Could she really choose Alex? Could she leave behind the life she had known and walk away from everything her family had built? Her heart told her she could. It told her that love was worth fighting for, no matter how impossible it seemed. But could her people accept that? Could they accept her choice? The next morning, after a restless night, Elisara made a decision. She would meet with her royal family and explain everything. She would tell them that she had found someone she cared about, someone who made her feel more alive than she ever had before. She would fight for her happiness, even if it meant giving up the life she had known. The time had come to face her family. The time had come to choose between her duty and her heart. And as Elisara stood before the mirror, preparing to speak, with her family, she knew that no matter the outcome, she would be true to herself. Elisara sat in the grand hall of the royal palace, her heart racing. Her family was gathered around her, the high council members seated on their thrones, their eyes fixed on her. The weight of the room felt suffocating. She had come here to make her case, to explain her feelings, to ask for understanding. But she already knew that this would not be an easy conversation. You've been quiet, Elisara. Her father, the king, said, his voice cold and commanding. What is it that you have to tell us? Elisara took a deep breath. Standing tall before them, she could feel Alex's words echoing in her mind. You deserve to choose what you want. Her hand shook, but she forced herself to remain composed. Made a decision, she said, her voice steady, though her heart was heavy with doubt. I'm no longer willing to follow the path set out for me. I've chosen a different future. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, and her father's expression grew hard. Chosen a different future, he repeated. You are a princess. Your future is already decided. You will marry a royal from a powerful family, just as we've arranged. Your duty is to the empire, to your people. Her father's words hit her like a physical blow. She had heard them all. Her life, duty, honor, family. But today, they felt empty. They felt wrong. I don't want that anymore, Elisara said, lifting her chin with determination. I want to marry someone I care about, someone who sees me for who I truly am. Her mother, the queen, spoke next. Her voice was sharp, as always. And who is this someone, Elisara? Who could possibly be worthy of you, if not a noble or a ruler? Elisara took a deep breath. It's Alex, she said quietly, feeling her heart race at the mention of his name. He's a human soldier. He's not from a royal family, but he's the one who treats me as a person, not a title. A silence fell over the room, thick and heavy. Elisara could feel the eyes of the council burning into her, judging her. Her father's face turned pale with disbelief. A human? He said, his voice laced with anger. Elisara, you cannot be serious. A human cannot be your choice. This is madness. Her mother's eyes narrowed. You would abandon your royal duty for some human? Are you prepared to destroy everything we have built for generations? I'm not abandoning anything, Elisara said, her voice rising with emotion. I am choosing my own path. I am choosing my heart." The room erupted into heated whispers. The council members exchanged harsh words, their eyes filled with disdain. But it wasn't the council that frightened Elisara the most, it was her father's reaction. His anger was palpable, and she could feel it in her bones. He was not used to being challenged, and certainly not by his own daughter. "You are no longer the heir to the throne," her father declared, his voice cold. "You've proven yourself unfit to rule. If you choose a human over your family, then you are no longer part of this royal line. Leave now, before you bring shame to us all." Elisara's heart shattered at his words. She had known it would be difficult, but she hadn't expected this. Her father had always been a man of power, and the idea of defying him had never been easy. But hearing the words spoken aloud, hearing her father cast her aside like this, was a blow she had not been prepared for. For a moment, she stood frozen, her mind reeling. The room felt distant, as if she were trapped in a dream. She had never wanted to disappoint her family. She had always done what was expected of her. But now, for the first time in her life, she felt a sense of freedom. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. "I understand," Elisara whispered, her voice filled with sorrow. "If this is how it must be, then I will leave." Her father's expression softened slightly, but it was not out of kindness. It was a look of finality. He had made his decision. She was no longer his daughter in his eyes. Before she turned to leave, she heard a voice, Alex's voice, suckling in her mind. "You don't have to do it alone. I'm here for you." And in that moment, Elisara knew what she had to do. She had to stand tall, not for her royal family, but for herself. She couldn't allow her life to be dictated by rules that no longer felt right. She would face whatever came next with the courage Alex had shown her. As she walked out of the room, the cold air of the palace corridors seemed to swallow her up. The walls, once filled with the promise of her future as a ruler, now felt empty. She had no title, no throne, but she had something far more valuable: freedom. Outside the palace, under the vast sky, she found Alex waiting for her. He was standing by the gates, his back straight, his eyes watching her with concern. "I'm here," Alex said softly, stepping toward her. "I'm not going anywhere." Elisara felt tears sting in her eyes, but she held them back. She had made her choice. It hadn't been easy, but it was hers. She had chosen him. She had chosen love. "I've lost everything," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "My family, my title, my future." Alex took her hands in his touch warm and steady. "Haven't lost anything. You've gained everything that truly matters. And I'll be with you through it all." Elisara looked up at him, her heart swelling with emotion. She had made the hardest decision of her life, but she knew it was the right one. The future was uncertain, but with Alex by her side, it was a future she could face. Elisara stood at the edge of the royal palace, the place that had been her home for so many years. It now felt like a distant memory, a place filled with the weight of her past. She had walked away from everything, her family, her title, and the life she had known. But in her heart, she knew she had made the right choice. Alex had shown her a love she had never imagined, and now she would fight for that love, no matter what it cost her. "I'm not going back," she whispered too. Herself, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I can't." Behind her, Alex stood, watching her with a steady and unwavering expression. He had always been there for her, but now it was time for both of them to face the unknown. Elisara had left her royal life behind, but what would the future hold for them? Could she truly build a life with a human, someone from a different world entirely? And how would they survive the challenges ahead? "We'll make it work," Alex said softly, his voice calm and reassuring. He had never doubted her, not even for a moment. "We're together now. It's all that matters." Elisara nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Alex by her side, she knew they could face anything. It was time to start fresh, to build a life based on their own rules, not the rules of the galaxy's ancient traditions. But as they turned to leave the palace grounds, they were met with an unexpected sight. A group of soldiers, armed and ready, stood at the gates. They were not from the royal family, but their uniforms were unmistakable. They were part of a faction loyal to Elisara's family, a faction that had been growing restless ever since. Her decision to abandon her royal duty? You're not welcome here. One of the soldiers shouted as they approached. Elisara felt her heart race.
Nice.
But Alex stepped forward, standing between her and the soldiers. "We don't want any trouble," he said, his voice firm but calm. "We're leaving, and we're not coming back." The soldier sneered. "You've betrayed your family, your people. The king has made it clear. If you leave, you will never return." Elisara's heart sank at the words. Her family had made their decision, and now it seemed that they wanted to make sure she never came back. But she wouldn't let fear control her. She had chosen this path, and she would see it through, no matter the cost. "I don't need their approval anymore," Elisara said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I've made my choice. I choose my future, and it's with him." Alex looked back at her, his eyes filled with support. He would stand by her no matter what. And that thought gave her the strength she needed. The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of what to do. Elisara could see that they were torn. Some of them were loyal to her, but others were simply following orders. It was clear that the divide within the royal family was growing. If they could not come to terms with her decision, perhaps the entire empire would crumble. "We're not asking for your permission," Alex continued, his voice firm and resolute. "We're leaving. If you try to stop us, you'll regret it." For a moment, it seemed like the soldiers might advance. But then something unexpected happened. The sound of footsteps echoed in the distance, and a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was an older man, dressed in the royal colors of Elisara's family. But there was no mistaking the calm and quiet authority he carried. "Stand down," the man said, his voice commanding, yet calm. The soldiers hesitated but slowly lowered their weapons. Elisara's eyes widened. She recognized the man immediately. He was a high-ranking advisor to her family, someone she had once trusted. "Uncle Darian?" she asked, her voice filled with disbelief. The man nodded, his expression softening as he looked at her. "I know this isn't easy, Elisara," he said, "but you must understand the consequences of your actions. The galaxy will not forgive you for abandoning your royal duty." "Don't care about the galaxy," she replied, her voice shaking with emotion. "I care about what's right, and this is what's right for me." He sighed, stepping closer to her. "I've seen the way you look at him. I know you love him, but this is bigger than love. This is about the survival of your people." "Can't rule a people who don't understand me," she said softly. "I won't be their queen if it means I have to give up who I am." Uncle Darian looked at her for a long moment, his face a mix of sadness and understanding. Then, without a word, he turned and walked toward the soldiers. "Let them go," he commanded. The soldiers stood in shock, not sure how to react. But at Uncle Darian's word, they slowly stepped aside, allowing Elisara and Alex to pass. The first time in what felt like an eternity, Elisara felt a sense of freedom. She wasn't bound by anyone's expectations. She was free to choose her own destiny. Alex turned to her as they walked away from the palace. "We're not going back," he said, his voice firm with determination. "We have a future, Elisara, and it's ours to create." She smiled at him, her heart filled with gratitude. He was right. They had no more ties to the past. The future was theirs to shape. But as they walked, Elisara couldn't help but wonder what awaited them. Would they be accepted by others? Could they build a life together, outside the constraints of royal bloodlines and ancient traditions? The path ahead was uncertain, but with Alex by her side, she knew they would face whatever came their way. "We'll build our future," Elisara said quietly, her voice filled with determination. Together. And with that, they walked into the unknown, ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. The days following their escape were filled with uncertainty. Elisara and Alex had left the royal palace and the life she had known behind. They were no longer princess and soldier, heir and servant. They were simply two people, united by a love, that defied everything that had come before. But while their hearts were free, the future was still unclear. What would they do now? Where would they go? How could they survive when the galaxy was still divided over her choices? They found refuge on a remote planet, far from the Empire's reach. It was a quiet world, filled with lush forests and peaceful rivers. Elisara had never seen a place like it before. It was beautiful in its simplicity. Here, they were no longer hunted or judged. Here they could breathe. But the peace was fragile. The galaxy was not kind to those who defied its ancient rules. Elisara knew that at any moment, her family's loyalists could track them down, and her royal blood would once again be a target for those who wanted to restore the old order. Still, as she looked around at the peaceful world they had chosen, Elisara couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was in control of her destiny. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Alex and Elisara sat together on the edge of a small cliff overlooking the forest below. The colors of the sky shifted from golden to pink to purple, painting the world in soft light. Elisara rested her head on Alex's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence beside her. "It's beautiful here," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "It is," Alex agreed, his arm wrapping around her. "It's peaceful. It's everything we need right now." For a long time, they sat there in silence, simply enjoying the moment. Elisara had never imagined that she would find happiness in such a place, with such a person. But here, with Alex, everything felt right. The worries of the galaxy, the expectations of her family, none of it mattered in this quiet corner of the universe. "I still can't believe we're here," Elisara said finally, looking up at him. "That we're free." "We are," Alex said, turning to face her. "We've made it together." Her heart swelled with emotion. He was right. They had faced so much rejection, betrayal, exile, yet they had made it through. And now they had a future ahead of them. But there was still something missing, something she hadn't yet said. "Alex," Elisara began, her voice shaky, "I don't want this peace to end. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I never told you the most important thing." Alex's eyes softened as he looked at her, sensing the weight of her words. "What is it, Elisara?" She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. This wasn't something she had planned, but now that the moment had arrived, she knew it was time. "I love you," she said, her voice strong despite the vulnerability she felt. "I've never felt this way before. I've never been able to. Love like this, without fear, without duty, without expectations. I love you for who you are, Alex, not for the soldier. Not for anything other than the man who has shown me what love truly means." Alex's eyes shone with emotion. He reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands. "I love you too. You're everything I never knew I needed. And now that I've found you, I can't imagine my life without you." Elisara smiled, heart filling with joy. The words she had longed to say, the feelings she had kept hidden for so long, had finally been shared. But even as she felt the warmth of his love, there was something more she needed to say. "I don't want to be a princess anymore," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I don't want the crown, the title, or the kingdom. Don't want anything that comes with the life I left behind. All I want is you." Alex's face softened as he reached for her hand. "You've already given up everything for me, Elisara. You've left behind your family, your title, your future. But I'm here. I'm all in." Elisara's heart beat faster. She had never imagined she would find someone like Alex, someone who didn't care about her royal blood, someone who loved her for who she was. And now, she was ready to take the next step. She wasn't just going to ask him to stay by her side. She was going to ask him to be her future forever. With shaking hands, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, simple ring. It was nothing like the grand jewelry of her family. It was a ring made of a stone she had found on the planet, a symbol of their love and their new life together. She held it out to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Alex," she said, her eyes filled with hope and love, "will you marry me?" For a moment, everything stood still. The wind stopped. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter, and The world around them became a quiet space filled with nothing but the two of them. Alex stared at her in surprise, his mouth slightly open, as if he hadn't expected the question. But then, slowly, he smiled a smile that reached his eyes and made her heart soar. "Yes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I." Will Elisar's heart leapt in her chest. She felt as if the entire world had shifted, as if everything that had ever held her back had vanished. She had found her future, and it was standing right in front of her, with tears in her eyes. She slipped the ring onto his finger, and he did the same for her. In that moment, everything that had once seemed impossible suddenly felt possible. They had no title, no palace, no kingdom, but they had each other. That was all they needed. As they stood there hand in hand, the stars above them seemed to glow a little brighter. For the first time, Elisara felt truly free. She had chosen her path, her love, and her future. And it was everything she had ever dreamed of.